Hey there. So I've been working on these fun sketches of houses and buildings. They're mostly made up of loose and free lines, similar to urban sketching, but I also like to mix in some small details with my line work. I've added color with watercolor paints and soft pastels in the past, but this week I'm trying something very different. Look closely and see if you can guess what I've been using. I'll give you a hint. Okay, so after watching a couple videos on urban sketching where the artist used Copic markers, I really liked the results and I wanted to try something similar. So I knew I wanted markers of some sort, but maybe something more transparent so I wouldn't lose the details of my line work. Oh, and I didn't want to spend much on something I wasn't sure that I'd love. And if you've watched my video on art supplies that I didn't need to purchase, then you'll know that I've made the mistake of purchasing certain supplies but not using them much at all. And I'll link that video here in case you're curious. All right, so any guesses? You might be surprised to learn that I've been using highlighters. Yep, inexpensive highlighters that were actually marketed for highlighting Bible verses. So not only are they made to avoid bleeding through thin sheets of paper, they're also available in many colors. And since it seems like their primary audience is adults, not young kids, the colors are definitely more sophisticated. Not your typical packs of neon yellow, green, and pink. So in this video, I'll show you the brand and the type of highlighter I'm using. I'll be going over the pros and the cons. I'll be showing you some tips and techniques that I've learned so far. And I'll be working on coloring this sketch for you so that you can see them in action. Let's jump into price point first. At the time of filming this video, you could get a pack of 36 Copic markers for $105, or you can get just the very basics, a 12-pack, for around $45. And it looks like individual markers are $8 each if you just wanted to test them out. Now, I have heard that Ohuhu has a comparable product at a lower price point, though you'll really see the savings if you're willing to invest in much larger quantities like this 160 pack. Now personally, I started out with an 8-pack of these Mr. Pen aesthetic highlighters for $3.99. There were many different sets available with different color schemes, but I went with the really soft nature looking one. Those are definitely more in my wheelhouse. And I was pleased with the low entry point, and I actually went on to purchase a total of 36 pens for under $20 after I'd tested the initial pack out. So, price was certainly a pro, but now let's talk about the first con. The individual pens are not labeled with any sort of name or serial number, so it's very difficult to tell what shades you have and what you don't. I wouldn't mind buying another pack, but I don't know if I'd be getting repeat colors or not. So, Mr. Pen, if you happen to see this video, I would love the option of purchasing a pack with every single shade. I'm just throwing it out there. So, my daughter numbered my highlighters for me, and we swatched them in the back of my sketchbook. And this leads me to the second con. The color of the pen doesn't always match the ink. And I'll show you a couple of examples of what I mean by that. Okay, let's see. I believe number 16 was a good example. So you can see the color of the pen looks more like a pink mauve, but if we look at the color of the actual ink, it's more of a peach shade. And let me show you one more. So number 21. I bought this one thinking that I would have a nice red for bricks and chimneys, but now let's compare it to the ink. So unfortunately the ink itself was more of a purple, so that was disappointing for sure. You know, the colors really are beautiful, so I'm not going to complain about the colors themselves. And I love that you can clearly see the pen underneath. That was super important to me. But I just can't stress enough the importance of swatching. because if you don't, you just never know what you're going to wind up with. And this first house that I'm going to show you is a really, really great example of that. Okay, so for this one, I did not rely on swatches. I just grabbed the pens straight from the pack and went for it. And this color combination turned out so disappointing. I really didn't have the contrast I thought I'd have, and that was really a bummer because I had been so excited about the line work, especially the smoke and the porch. It could have been a really successful drawing if I'd planned the colors better. This next drawing was another one of my early pieces, and you can see where I struggled with overlapping the lines. These highlighters are not going to blend nearly as smoothly as Copic markers, and this is especially true with darker colors. But if you're aware of this limitation, I think that you can work around it and actually use it to your advantage, and so I'll be showing you how to do that shortly. Okay, on to the next tip. Be aware of direction. Similar to when you're contouring, consider the flow of the shapes. So the path is flat and horizontal, while the bushes are either vertical or angled. Another tip, and I'm still getting used to this one myself, I've come to realize it isn't necessary to fill in every gap with color, and actually leaving parts of my page untouched creates a nice airy quality. Now let's get into shading. So this is where the overlap we talked about earlier comes into play. Knowing that going over your marks a second time will darken them, you can easily create shadow and add depth to your drawings. In this next example, see where the building and the trees are darker in value? And that happened by simply going over my lines one additional time. Overlap can also help you create texture. Let's take a close look at the brickwork as well as the siding. And personally, I think it's so much more interesting like this rather than a flat and consistent surface. And this next one here, the roof has layers to it thanks to a slight overlap of the marks. And for this final example, I absolutely love the texture on the side of the gray building. The wooden door looks more like wood, and the panels on the left side have more depth, and that's all thanks to overlap. So that wraps up my main tips, the most important pros and cons to consider, but I think I'll probably think of some more as I work on coloring my sketch. Okay, so I've already decided what colors I'm going to use, so I won't have any unpleasant surprises along the way. These light colors are the easiest to work with. They don't blend necessarily, but they are forgiving. And if you decide to give these pens a try, I suggest that you play around with the angles and how you hold them. The tip is a chisel, so gliding along the main surface will be wider and lighter than using just the tip. So that's great for covering your main areas. But do you see how I can use the tip to come through afterwards and add darker values to the wood? I have a question you guys might be able to help me out with. Based on the videos I watched, it looks like most Copic and Ohuhu, am I saying that right? Markers tend to be more opaque. But if you've used either brand and you find that not to be the case, please let me know in the comments. I'm actually really curious because I love how my line work is still so visible with the highlighters. I feel like it would be such a shame to spend all the time on the tiny details only to lose them entirely with the addition of color. So yeah, I'm just really curious whether they have a transparent quality like these or whether they are mostly more opaque. And full disclosure, I struggle with opaque markers. I don't play well with bold, dark colors. I have tried using Posca markers, and unfortunately, they made it into that video that I mentioned, the list of art supplies that I didn't need to buy. Um, but I just don't know about the Copics. I'm really curious. Maybe I would have slightly better luck with them. You see how cool it is that just an extra swipe here and there is enough to add some subtle shadows? Although I did plan out my color palette beforehand, I didn't actually consider where the colors would be going. So that's why there's some hesitation here and there. And I'm just trying to make sure I have a good variety of colors all around my picture. And I do know that I like all of these colors together, so I think that's kind of the main thing. With these two plants on the upper shelves, I'm going to attempt kind of sectioning off different parts with 3 or 4 different colors. So we'll see how that goes as I build onto the first yellow part and now the lighter green shades. And I think with these pens, you need to be okay with imperfection. In fact, you need to be a big fan of embracing imperfection, because if you're not, I don't think this style or these pens will help you achieve your goals. It would be really difficult to achieve a highly realistic look. At least for me, I know it would be. But then I love letting go and making a mess. I find the most appealing parts are often the messiest. So this suits me just fine. And for this pinkish pot here, I'm leaving streaks that are unmarked. And like I mentioned before, I think it creates a look that's light and airy. And I was thinking I'd like to experiment more with hatching and stippling, using not just my ink pen, but the highlighters themselves. And I really don't know if I'll get the desired effect that I'm going for, but it's an interesting concept that is worth exploring. So maybe for my next drawing, I'll focus on that. And I'm not sure if you could use some sort of blending marker with these. I might have to look into that though. I'm afraid that you could lose like this cool kind of choppy nature, but I could definitely see how with certain projects it might be nice to have an option of a more blended look. So if I do find anything that works, I will be sure to let you guys know. Okay, so this color is really quite dark. It's a great color, but do you see how unforgiving it is? Every single overlap is visible, like way more visible than I'd like. And I prefer to build up my dark slowly and gradually. So I'm thinking this color is really beautiful for shadows, but I probably should have gone with a lighter base and reserved the dark blue for shadows only. Clearly, I still have a lot to learn about using highlighters for artwork. But slowly but surely, things are improving. As far as layering different colors goes, I don't really think it's a problem as long as you start light and build up with the dark. And I suppose doing some swatching where you're actually building different colors on top of each other, that could be an option too if you're really curious how they interact with each other. But I think I'll just kind of go with the flow. And I'm really liking the addition of the dark green here in the shadows and the stems. I think that looks good. And of course, that's a good example of starting really light and then building up with just touches of dark. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right here, but I do hope that this video has been helpful if you've ever been considering adding markers to your artwork. And if you'd like to see more videos on urban sketching, then I'm going to link the playlist here at the end. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.